Pope Francis made his final journey on Saturday as his coffin was taken away from Vatican to St Mary's Major Basilica, his chosen place for his burial. The coffin was placed on an open-top Pope mobile and driven through the heart of Rome. There, thousands of people lined the route to applaud the passage. Francis, who shunned much of the pomp and privilege of papacy during his 12-year reign, had asked to be buried in St Mary's Major rather than in the crypt of St Peter's, which is a traditional resting place for popes. The tomb, which is Franciscus, his name in Latin inscribed on the top, a reproduction of the simple iron-plated cross he used to wear around his neck, hangs above the marble slab. Italy mounted one of the biggest security operations the country has ever seen since the funeral of John Paul II. It closed the airspace over the city and called in extra security forces with anti-aircraft missiles and patrol boats guarding the event. More than 250,000 people attended the funeral mass in St Peter's Square, the Vatican said, including royals, heads of governments and cardinals who will choose Francis's successor. This is the moment when the body was, his mortal remains were being taken from St. Peter's Basilica, and the funeral mass was held at the St. Peter's Square. Cardinal Battista Re was the one who held the funeral mass, after which the mortal remains were placed on a modified Pope mobile and taken through Rome to the church where Pope Francis wanted to be buried, which is St Mary's Major. And on the route, thousands of Catholic mourners in fact lined up and clapped as the mortal remains of Pope Francis passed to the church, one of the famous basilicas. It's a papal basilica, and the body was in, or the mortal remains was rather brought in to the church premises where it would be in fact buried. Pope Francis in fact chose not to be buried in the vault of St. Peter's, which is where the popes have been earlier buried. He in fact chose St. Mary's Major Basilica for this for his funeral and final resting place. Out of the burial, now the big question that would be asked is when will the next conclave start? And the conclave will in fact deliberate over the election of the next Pope. 138 cardinals are expected to cast their vote. There are 4 cardinals from India as well who would be choosing the next successor to Pope Francis.